Hi, everyone. Welcome to the second season of Inner Ear Secrets, a student led audiology podcast that uncovers what's really going on in the world of hearing. Before we get started, let's introduce ourselves. My name is Veronica. I studied the Bachelor of Arts, majoring in psychology and Japanese.
And my name is Tiffany. I majored in neuroscience and psychology, and now we're both clinical audiology master's students studying at the University of Melbourne. This season, we'll be focusing on interdisciplinary collaboration, looking at how audiologists work together with other healthcare professionals to improve patient outcomes. We'll be chatting with guest speakers from across different fields, sharing real world case studies, and exploring what collaboration looks like in practice. So stay tuned for some really exciting conversations ahead.
So, to take things off, today's episode is all about when should a healthcare professional refer a patient to an audiologist. We'll talk through the key signs and symptoms to watch for, who might be beneficial for a hearing assessment, and why make that referral early can make a huge difference.
But why does this matter so much for healthcare professionals working with both adults and kids? And why is it so important that everyone's on the same page about it?
All right, let's start with GPs and primary care doctors. One of the big ones is sudden hearing loss. That's an ear emergency and should be referred urgently. But also, if a patient had repeated ear infections and is still struggling to hear, or if they report tinnitus or dizziness, those are all good reasons to refer and roll out something more serious.
Now, onto speech pathologists. They work really closely with kids. If a child isn't meeting speech or language milestones, not responding consistently to sounds, or making slow progress in therapy, a hearing check is crucial. We need to rule out hearing loss as a contributing factor, as it's one of the first steps in early intervention.
Yeah, that's an important point. And for physiotherapists, hearing might not be the first thing that comes to mind, but it definitely plays a role, especially with balance. If they're doing vestibular rehab, but it's not going to plan, or they're reporting vertigo, unsteadiness, or balance issues, it could be linked to the inner ear and balance organ specifically. In that case, a vestibular assessment with an audiologist who specializes in balance testing can really help.
Professions can pick up different pieces. Take nurses or aged care workers, for example. They're often the very first personnel to notice if someone's constantly asking for repeats, turning up the TV too loud, or withdrawing in group setting.
Yes, even in mental health, sometimes clients withdraw socially, feel exhausted after conversations, or describe brain fog. Those symptoms can be signs of untreated hearing loss, not just depression or cognitive decline.
Exactly. And for mental health professionals, it's about spotting those subtle cues, like someone saying they feel disconnected or frustrated, or even the isolation during conversations could actually be struggling to keep up because they can't hear properly.
When hearing loss is treated, their confidence, mood, and participation often improves. It really shows how closely hearing ties into mental and emotional well being.
Now, for occupational therapists or OTs, if someone's struggling with verbal instructions, constantly asking for repetitions or opting out of for activities, that might be a red flag for them. And home modifications could help them a lot more.
Yeah. And then there are optometrists. If a patient has both vision and hearing issues, you might notice them leaning in close, missing verbal cues, or relying heavily on their sight to compensate. That's a big cue to check hearing as well.
This shows how important it is to screen both, especially in older adults, because dual sensory loss, like vision and hearing, can really impact communication and their safety as well.
Yeah, and the earlier we pick up on those signs and refer, the better. Whether it's hearing aids, balance, rehab, counseling, or just having the right support in place. It all starts with that referral.
Yeah, and the audiologists aren't just here to diagnose hearing loss. We're part of the team, and we help manage and support people through the whole journey from testing to treatment and beyond.
Which brings us to a bigger picture, global audiology. Around the world, many communities don't have access to routine hearing checks or hearing devices. In low resource settings, hearing loss can go undetected for years, and the impact on education, employment, and well-being is huge.
Which is why awareness and referral pathways are so important, not just locally, but globally. Whether you're working in rural Australia or overseas, recognizing the signs and knowing when to refer can really make a huge difference.
Exactly. So whether you're a GP, a speech pathologist, a physio, a teacher, or anyone else working with people, if you even suspect there might be a hearing issue, it's always worth referring.
To bring today's topic to life, we're joined by Jamie Foo, a student audiologist and a friend of ours who's been on both sides of the story, both as a clinician in training and as a patient. She's here to share her personal journey with sudden hearing loss and what she's learned from the experience.
Hi, my name is Jamie. Thank you for having me.
Hi, Jamie. Thanks so much for joining us today. Could you please briefly introduce yourself to our listeners?
Hello, my name is Jamie. I'm a final year Master of Clinical Audiology student at the University of Melbourne. I previously did a Bachelor of Science and I majored in neuroscience.
Now, Jamie, can you tell us more about your experience with sudden loss?
Yeah, so it happened about 3 years ago. I was on holiday and I woke up with very muffled hearing on one of my, and the next day I woke up, I couldn't hear out of the other ear either. So I lost my hearing, quite a significant amount of it, in about a span of 2 days.
Did you end up going to a GP?
Yes, however, I only went to the GP about a month later because when this happened, I was on holiday and I wasn't really aware of how much it would cost for me to see a doctor in a foreign country. And I didn't really want to rack up a massive bill for no reason. So I decided to wait till I returned to Australia to get that checked out.
When you went to the GP, what did the GP tell you?
Yeah, I told the person all of my symptoms, and especially when they heard that it has been the same for an entire month. They immediately sent me to get a scan done. But now, as an audiologist, I understand why they did that because I was at risk of mastoiditis because I was fluid to be in the ear for that long is a high risk.
Yeah.
Your GP urged you to go to the ENT, considering how this was a sudden hearing loss?
Interestingly, I had to specifically request to see an ENT because, when I brought up the idea of going to an ENT, the GP didn't seem too impressed with that idea. In fact, he kept discouraging me from doing so because of how long the waiting times were.
Yeah.
Which is quite fair. And now that, as an audiologist with that experience, not surprising to see that a lot of people are still quite unaware about the hearing, especially sudden hearing loss, and how sometimes it does.
Yeah.
You require to act.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because normally with sudden hearing loss, we've been taught that there's a very limited window time. It's like about 6 to 8 weeks where we some sort of golden time. The GP can prescribe them with steroids, medication, and stuff like that. Did they prescribe you with any medications for your ear?
But that one's like sensory neural, right? So like maybe we need to go to audiology first, get the hearing test.
At that time, I didn't know what audiology was. I didn't know it existed. His management was basically just to give me antibiotics because I've had a kind of like a sinus infection for so long, about 2 months, and never got better. So based on what I've told him and the scans told him, he seemed quite certain that it was more of a conductive issue rather than a sensory neural issue. So he treated it as
Okay. But
And
how do you feel right now as an audiologist student? Like, how do you feel about that management?
yeah, definitely. There was some risk with that management
Mhm.
because we did not confirm that it was not a sensory neural loss.
yeah,
I was definitely lucky that my hearing returned to normal after those antibiotics
Yeah.
because it cleared out everything.
Mhm.
But just thinking if that didn't happen, I would have probably already missed the ideal window time frame
Yeah.
to get that treated.
You mentioned that you have a sinus issue. Is this like a long-term thing? Like, is it
Yeah,
ongoing issue?
I saw an ENT when I was in high school. They told me I'd have quite enlarged adenoids for my age. Now, the thing is, because of my age, if he does treat it, it will only have a 50% chance of working. And I do have to pay a fee for that surgery.
Mhm.
So I decided not to pursue it because such a high chance of it returning again.
and with your sinus issues, does that mean that your ears are constantly blocked up?
Sometimes I do feel they're quite blocked up, but it's quite hard to tell, really, because if you lived like this for a couple of years,
Oh.
you tend to get used to it.
Yeah.
And you don't usually notice until something sudden happens like this.
But is this the only time that you experience such extreme cases with your sinus
Yeah,
problem?
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Occasionally when I do get a flu, my hearing will go down a little bit, but definitely not as drastic as what happened before.
Mhm. So now you've done a year of audiology, a year and a half. At the time that you went to GP, would you actually prompt the GP to refer you to an audiologist?
Yeah, now that I've done some study and definitely be a good idea to refer to an audiologist because there are things that audiology can rule out, the difference between a conductive and a neural, and also help with the triaging with the more extensive cases, like the ones that do need an ENT referral, the ones that need to go to an emergency. It's a more comprehensive way of management because you're not overlooking some of the risks.
Yeah, definitely. At the end of the day, the GP actually help you make the right call, but like it's very, I guess, more safe to get all the things checked, right?
Yeah,
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 just to rule out.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, yeah, I was very lucky that it did work.
Mhm.
Yeah, but if it didn't work, I would have just not gotten my hearing back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
All right,
really
yeah,
lucky to know
that
that.
idea.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's really lucky to know that the hearing loss was just temporary, like conductive, rather than the hearing organ that's actually not working. Lastly, to wrap it up with you, Jamie, are there any helpful tips or advice for our listeners regarding raising awareness about hearing loss?
Yeah, so if you experience a sudden loss, that's not normal. Definitely go to an audiologist immediately if you can. They will help you determine what to do from there. Overall, there needs to be more awareness around hearing and hearing loss in general, because it's something we take for granted very easily. Especially young people tend to think that we're immune to different diseases and things because we're young. But I think we're very prone to missing important details under the pretense that we're young. So it's very important once you're aware of it to get appropriate help.
Yeah. And with your
Definitely.
case, it's really important to get onto it as soon as possible so that we don't miss out the window time to get back to normal with your hearing. So thank you, Jamie. Thank you for your experience. It's a really nice experience that I guess tackle both audiology and other healthcare disciplines. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, you've really highlighted how hearing is just one part of the much bigger health story. Yeah, and it's such a great reminder that we should be working alongside audiologists and GP to give our patients the best possible outcomes. And yeah, so thanks everyone for tuning in to Inner Ear Secrets. We'll catch you next time as we continue to explore what's really going on in the world of hearing.